All right, so today we're going to be kind of exploring and talking about how to empower and engage feedback for positive change. So when we're thinking about how do we incorporate feedback within our instruction, there can be a couple different ways that you can do this. And when we're first looking at this, we just want to think about three things. Well, how do these comments maybe make you feel? And when you're thinking about them, just kind of use an emoji and place it in the chat. But maybe the first comment, your work needs improvement. It's just not good enough. So how does that maybe make you feel? So again, use the chat, pick an emoji, and throw that right in there.
How would you feel, Steph, if you got that comment?
Well, I got something really similar when I was at ISTE. So when I was at ISTE, I got a similar comment about, your work needs improvement. And yeah, she's shaking her head. And this person was just like talking to somebody pretty high at ISTE. And she told me that I have no potential. And so getting that type of comment, you're just like, what?
It was early in the morning, and I meant that you had no ceiling, that you have lots of potential, but sometimes my neurons, don't fire and wire properly.
Yeah. So now it's a joke. Did not mean that, but it was just funny. But yeah, well, sometimes when you just get comments or feedback like that, you're just like, well, what's not good enough? What needs improvement?
Yeah. What can I do with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how about if you received this other comment? Your essay demonstrates a strong understanding of the topic and your arguments are well supported with evidence. However, I recommend revisiting your conclusion to provide a more concise summary of your main points. That's an intense comment. Well,
yeah. How does that make you feel, Greta?
I think it's intense, like Mel says, but I think it gives me the tools of what to do next. And sometimes, your work needs improvement, like the first comment, and it's like, okay, what do I need to do to improve it, right? So I think it gives you, some kind of tool to make it better next time.
Yeah.
What do you think, Steph?
I think so too. It provides kind of, okay, what is not good enough, right? It doesn't just say it's not good enough. It tells you kind of what it is and what maybe that person recommends. Also, it uses statements like I rather than everybody thinks you should revisit your conclusion. And then the final one is just great work. So how does great work make you feel when you hear that, Greta?
It's kind of misleading because at first you see great and it's like, oh, good, but now what?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. I agree too. It's kind of like, okay, well, what else do I need to focus in on or whatever?
Yes. Or what made it great?
Yeah.
And is there any other thing I could do to make it even better or different, next time?
Yeah. So this research comes from John Hattie. And where it comes from is it shows a 0.73 effect size. And what we know about that is when feedback is implemented with strong, in a strong way, rather than just maybe saying good job or your work needs improvement. But when we're using language like number 2, we actually will see a higher effect size within our students. So what this means is, if you're not familiar with John Hattie, the 0.4 is showing just 1 year's growth. So this 0.73 is pretty high when it comes to seeing students work. But what John Hattie also kind of says, again, is it's how you implement it. You can just give feedback to students and it might not be implemented well. So that is not going to show a 0.73. And so when it comes to feedback, our best practices is we want to make sure we're not just judging students' works or colleagues' works. We also want to maybe use criteria to help us find their strengths and gaps. So you might want to have a rubric or some type of outline that allows you to know, what am I looking for when it comes to this student and how they perform to the activity or the standards or whatever you're maybe measuring or giving them feedback on. You also want to provide them suggestions for next steps, so that way they know what they can improve on for the next time. And then you want to make sure that you're keeping it very timely and just giving them that feedback as quickly as you can. You don't want to wait a week to grade an essay. You kind of want to do it throughout the process of them working on that essay.
Okay. So now, whenever we get feedback, we need to think about these 3 questions, they should be answered in our feedback or feed forward, like we like to call it. So we need to know where we want our student to go, and we need to let our student know where they are headed to, where they are now, and what are their next action steps. Feedback should give them the tools so that they can improve. It's part of the learning process. It shouldn't come at the end. So feedback should be part of, you know, what they do throughout the whole thing, so that at the end they know, you know, they know what to expect, and we know what's happening.
Yeah, these 3 questions can just kind of help us guide students through that feedback stage. And so when we're looking at feed forward, there's 4 different things that we kind of want to follow. And this is our process. So when we're thinking about giving feedback to students, this is kind of the way that we follow and provide that feedback that is showing that 0.73 that John Hattie suggests. So the first one is based on clear success criteria. So we want it to be very clear. We want it to be very focused. And a lot of times we'll use that rubric. We want to build trust with our students. And then we want to use language that is constructive and descriptive. And then finally, give insight into the students' learning. So we're going to dive into each of these, and then we're going to kind of explain how we kind of use Mote to kind of help us along the way. And so the first one is based on clear success criteria. And so when we're looking at clear success criteria, we have here a rubric. So I did this with a 6th grade teacher, and it was focused on the book Touching Spirit Bear. We had a wonder wall. And with this wonder wall, it allowed us to kind of focus on those 3 questions. What are we learning? Why are we learning it? And when will we know that we've learned it? Okay, so again, this is from John Hattie, and it's just providing that clarity to students. What we then did is we had this rubric down here. So what are we looking for? Students know exactly what to include in each parts of these, their assignment and their work. So again, we had each of the different parts broken down in a rubric. And so when we were giving feedback, we could use rubric language to really ensure that students were reaching a 4 compared to maybe a 1. Students also had this up front. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't given to them at the very end. It was given to them right at the beginning. So that way they knew what to look for and what to include in their project. After we did this, we then had students use tag feedback. When you're giving feedback, you want to have a protocol in place. And so you can see here, this was the game plan. The students learned how to give feedback. So what I did is I took the rubric and I just explained, what does it look like if you're telling them that you really like the title and the author? So here is an example. I really like how you use the title and the author in the book of your video. But if you were to ask that as a question, it might be worded like this. Why did you pick that font for the title and author of the book? And then the last one is give a suggestion. Capitalize Ben Michelson's first and last initial at the 37-second mark. Okay. So again, it was very, very step-by-step on each of these different parts to provide that feedback to students. And again, we let them see a model of what it might look like. We also explain that when you leave like 37-second marks, that makes that makes people feel seen because you're using examples from their work. They know exactly where that happened in their video or when they did that in their paper. So whenever you can use student examples and provide it within the language, it can help as well. So once they did, we reviewed how to give feedback. We then did rounds. So it took 3.5 minutes, which sounds really crazy. I had a timer, so it did really take that long. They watched a video because, again, these were book trailers. After the video, they then gave feedback for 2 minutes, and then they switched and did it again. So they watched a new video, feedback for 2 minutes, switched again, video, feedback, switch. After that, here's where they left their feedback. So they rated it. They left a tell and ask in a suggestion, and they initialed it. Then they went to the next line for the next video. Then what they did at the very end is we just reflected. How can I improve next time? What things did you like from the videos that they watched? So that was kind of the process. And again, taking it, the success criteria, and then using a protocol such as tag to really help students give better feedback when they're using peer feedback, but not only for students, but also for adults.
So building trust. When we are giving feedback. Yes, we need to embrace like this culture where, or this environment where our students feel safe, so that they really take in the feedback, but they are also, they feel safe to learn. But in order to help them feel safe, we need to build trust. We need to get to know them, to connect with them. So a really cool example to start building trust and getting to know them are check-ins. Well, Mel is here in the chat. She has some amazing templates you can use, but I decided to do something different. I asked my students to draw using auto draw how they were feeling that day, and then they could share, they could record their mode, giving me a little bit more information on how they were feeling and why they were feeling. And that drawing you see over there, like the little heart, at first when I saw the drawing, it was A plus B. I didn't know what my student meant. And this drawing was made by a student I've been trying to reach like since the very beginning of the year. And maybe the whole thing that the check-in was different, the auto draw experience, being able to record his feelings. Well, he shared a story that A is his dad, B is him. And that day, his dad was picking him up from school, and turns out his dad has moved to another province, and he hasn't been seeing his dad as much as he used to. So it was powerful because it gave me a lot of information about him, which I didn't know, and I've been trying for ages to get. So give them the chance to share their feelings. And at the same time, you are starting to build trust and this environment where they feel safe to learn and where they begin to take in feedback and accept it. And it's not like, oh, I messed up, I made a mistake. No, mistakes are part of growing, are part of learning. So this is super important.
And then finally next is using language that's constructive and descriptive. So here's an example, and we want you to just kind of practice in the chat. So you see this example from a student. How would you give them feedback?
What would you say, Steph?
Oh, I don't even know. I'm like, probably start off complimenting the student, right?
You're so clever.
In a longer session, we've talked about how I'd probably just bark. Thanks, Cora. So in a longer session, we've talked about how we went over personality tests, and Stephanie Rossi does a really great job of sharing personality tests and how to use them in your classroom. And so we were like, this student's probably a green, or we think orange, I believe. And so we were talking about that as well. But here are just some stems to kind of help you. So if you click on these images, these are kind of kudos. So you can kind of take one thing from each of the different columns and then create your feedback. So we might say like, I like how you, thought cleverly about the control plus C, control plus V. But however, you need to actually copy the reindeer, right? So just kind of thinking that through. And then again, this can just kind of help you. It helped me a lot when I was just learning about how to give better feedback, not only to students, but for staff. And so what I would do is I would take this little Post-it note and I would write down feedback to the staff or to the people. And then I would just leave a Post-it note. So then I would give them this little Post-it note just to kind of show them that, hey, I noticed what they were doing. And I could just kind of give different kudos or appreciation to those staff. But you could probably also use this to help you improve on feedback too. Like maybe this student needs to try again, right? And instead of just copying the reindeer, they need to actually copy it. Pixar, oh, go ahead.
No, that Rick is saying here, clever, but please try again by copying each square of the grid.
Yes. So here's another example from Pixar. Pixar, they have to learn how to give feedback and take feedback. So when it comes to Pixar, they say start with the positives. So again, providing examples of what you really liked, doing that feedback sandwich. So a good thing, maybe a negative thing, and then a good thing again. Listening to feedback when we feel the person is on our side, right? Like we like to listen to people that kind of agree with us, that might provide that safe space for us, that have that relationship already built. And then we want to make it personal. So again, using those like I statements, rather than nobody will understand or I don't understand, right? That kind of makes you feel a little bit better when it's just one person, not everybody. And then just providing more detail. So that's where you can put in those timestamps. That's where you can incorporate different things to really help your students know exactly how to make it funnier or how to engage the audience or whatever the learning goals are based on your kind of overview. And then making suggestions. So giving them maybe a suggestion, but not telling them the solution. Maybe asking questions to help them get to that solution to make it better. So again, these are available to you. You'll just click on these little images to access those links. And then finally, giving insight into a student's learning. So now we're going to kind of just explore Mote a little bit. And there's two different ways that we can use or make it fun. And I'm so glad this person's here. So Greta, go ahead and give her a shout
out. So I love these soundboards. You have 3 here we will be sharing. They were created by Candy Tech Ideas. And you have lots of effects. We know we have the expert sound effect person here in the chat. So, you should be here, Rick. But these are great when you're recording your feedback, to make it more engaging, more friendly. It also helps, build this environment we were talking about. Not just, you can even personalize and share your teaching style or how close you are to students with this. You have, the Mario edition. I love that one. And then do you want to do the...
Yeah, and then one of our friends, Christine Morgan, if you're not following her or Frederick on social media, you should. She has school-friendly playlists. So some thoughts when you're maybe using Motes is to make it fun. And I love Greta when she was first telling me about using music with Mote. She talked about Rick. And during her ISTE certification, she would blast an air horn. Okay, why can't we do that with feedback, right? And I really wish Rick was in this scene to kind of bounce off that air horn like he does during most of my other sessions at ISTE, but he's not. Well, maybe. And so again, use music. Try to think, how can you make this fun with your voice and with soundboards and music as well? So now we're going to really quickly just walk through one example. There's a couple different templates. He's doing it at home. Thank you. There's a couple different templates of how you can use feedback with your students, and feel free to use these, edit these, but we're just going to walk through an example of using Mote now that we've kind of talked about how to give good feedback. So here is an example, and I can go to my Mote. So again, if you already have it downloaded on your extensions, it will be able to be accessed. I click it, and then all I have to do is click that purple. And there's sentence starters for students. So I really like how you added, and then you can tell the students exactly what you like them that they add. And then I just click the check mark. And students are able to hear my voice once I hit insert. And another thing that I really like to do is I'm able to add all of these different voices and hear from every single different student and what they maybe have to share about certain feedback, and then giving time for students to go and listen to those feedbacks and then make decisions on how they plan to move forward with their work. So allowing them to reflect on that too. So again, use soundboards, use music, use any of these sentence starters, have a procedure in place to really help your students. And there's all these different templates here in order to support you along the way.
Yes, and we need to remember it's their learning. Feedback should be their tool, and they should be able to use it. So all these amazing tools will just make the process better.
This one right here is from Catlin Tucker. And so what students can do is, again, they can use Mote, and they will, again, just go up to their extension. It's built in right into Google Slides. They talk about the purpose, and students can either tell you or they could just highlight this section. But sometimes it's better for students to explain what they needed to revisit or revise, or maybe they needed focus feedback and what that focus feedback is on. Or maybe they need one-on-one coaching, or maybe they need troubleshooting a problem or an issue. So again, once they have that, they'll click the Mote, They will record their voice once they sign in. Okay. And it usually doesn't take this long.
No, it's pretty fast.
It is pretty fast. There we go. Okay.
There.
So then the students can explain what they want to revisit and revise with you. Then they'll check the box, and then they can come right onto their template, hit insert, and then their little icon with their voice will pop up on the slides. There we go. And then they can move it right here. And then if I wanted to, as the teacher, to respond back to them, I could go in and use Mote, provide my voice notes. La, 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 la. And then after that, what I like to do here is I like to, I love the purple Mote, but sometimes.
But yeah, too many people.
Yeah, if you're working with other people, sometimes it's better if you can go in and change the color. So right now it's purple. I might come in and I go to format options. Once I'm in format options, I might go to recolor. And I might say, okay, I'm this green color, the student's the purple. And so then we just quickly know who's who. And it just kind of can help when we're creating different activities to kind of just help with communicating back and forth. And then we do a post conference. So what's the student's actions? What's the teacher actions? Again, I could type it or I could just use Mote. Another thing that I could do is a follow-up. So with the follow-up, I'm able to explain, okay, I need to email this parent or I need to do this. And I can put these little voice notes over there as well. You want to talk about the glows and grows?
Okay. I love the glows and grows. It's a different way of talking about strengths and weaknesses. So my glows are what I'm really proud of, what I feel I've done well. And the grows are what I need to improve on, what I want to work on. So again, we can ask our students to reflect on their own process by using glows and grows, but they can also do peer feedback. So you can use Mote. So each student can reflect on their own learning using one color, and then maybe their classmate, yes, can give them feedback. And then we teachers can also provide feedback to them using the glows and grows format. I think it's a friendlier way of sharing, what sometimes we don't want to hear.
Yeah, for sure. And then this final template is where students think about what they want to get feedback on. So they will write down what they want feedback on, or they will voice using Mote what they want feedback on. Once they do that, then the student will have some peer or another teacher or somebody give them feedback. So what do they see that they did well? What still needs to be worked on? And so again, using Mote, you can just do this and put the little Mote icon right here. And actually you can have, again, multiple different Motes for different students providing different feedback on a piece of work or an example of what the student did.
And what I love about that one is that it gives them a voice on what they want feedback on, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we just assume we are giving feedback on something, but we don't, knowing what they particularly need is more powerful. I think it's giving them extra voice.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us. If you guys do have questions, I didn't see any in the chat, but feel free to send us a Mote if you want to send us a question. We love connecting with educators, so please, please, please reach out if you have any questions. You can find us on any of the social medias. There's so many of them that I don't even want to list them all. Or you can just send us an email as well. But we look forward to connecting with you and learning alongside you.